Welcome back, everyone. I'm here to tell you 3 true unnerving horror stories, so get ready. And just before we get into the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more terrifying tales from us. Now let's begin. 3 true unnerving horror stories. The first story is called The Hitchhiker. I was hitchhiking across the United States when I met a guy who I'll call John. John picked me up outside of Las Vegas, and he said he would drive me all the way to Los Angeles for free. I had been walking for days, so I was exhausted, and I begged him to take me. He agreed, and he told me to jump into his car. I asked if I could listen to music, but he said no, because it would distract him from driving. I was too worried about this, because I had already taken many rides from strangers at this point, and nothing bad had ever happened to me. As we were driving, though, my gut told me something was wrong. John kept glancing at me through his rearview mirror. It didn't scare me exactly, but it was certainly unsettling. I decided to try to make conversation with him in order to ease my tension, but John simply responded with one-word answers. He also refused to roll down his window or turn on the air conditioning, even though it was over 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside. This made me extremely uncomfortable. I tried to focus on anything else other than how scared I was becoming, but my mind was all over the place. As we continued driving, I began to notice that John seemed to be purposefully avoiding the highway. We were going slower than I thought we should be, and we were far away from the route that Google Maps had shown me earlier. It was at this point I realized that John was trying to abduct me. I wanted to scream and make as much noise as possible, but my throat had tightened up with fear and all I could do was whimper. I attempted to open the door and jump out of the car, but John had locked it. I frantically searched for a way out, but there was no escape. In a panic, I looked around for something to defend myself with. My eyes landed on a water bottle on the floor and I grabbed it. With all my might, I hurled it at John's head. It hit him square in the forehead, and he swerved the car off the road. At that moment, I opened the door and ran as fast as I could. As I looked back, I saw John slumped over, clutching his head. Then he got out of the car and began chasing after me. I didn't dare look back again. Instead, I ran to the nearest gas station where I hid inside until the police arrived. They took me home, and I haven't hitchhiked since. Next, let's hear about an encounter with an unknown creature. This happened many years ago, when I was still living at home with my parents. One day, while I was walking through the park near my house, I noticed something strange sitting on a nearby hill. I couldn't see what it was because it was camouflaged against the trees, but I could feel its presence staring at me. I stopped in my tracks and slowly turned around to face whatever it was, but whatever it was had disappeared. I shrugged and continued on my way. A few weeks later, I was out walking again, and I happened to pass by the same hill. I felt that same presence once again, and I turned around to see that same unidentified object sitting in the exact same spot. It had not moved. I called out to it and asked what it was, but it did not respond. I decided to investigate further, and I climbed up the hill to get a closer look. I soon realized that the object was a pair of shoes. It looked as if they'd been left there intentionally, though I knew that nobody lived near this area of the park. I reached out to touch them, but my mom called me from the bottom of the hill, asking me to come back home. Reluctantly followed her, but as I looked back, I saw the shoes were gone. I never saw them again. To this day, I have no idea what those shoes were doing in the middle of the park. Even stranger, I have no idea whose they were. I've asked everyone I know if they'd left their shoes there, but no one has admitted to it. And the park employees have no record of anyone reporting lost or stolen shoes either. I am still curious about the mystery, and I hope that someday we will be reunited, so I can finally find out what they were doing in the middle of the park. But now it's time for the final story, one that involves a sinister presence in someone's home. When I was young, my family lived in an old Victorian house. There were 7 of us in total, 4 adults and 3 children. We had always been a happy family, and we rarely argued. However, things began to change when my sister started high school. She became distant, angry, and depressed. She would stay in her room for days without coming out. And she seemed to hate my parents and I. We didn't know why until one day we found a diary in her closet. In it, we discovered that she had been bullied at school. Tried everything we could to cheer her up, but nothing worked. Eventually, she began cutting herself. This deeply disturbed me, and I vowed to protect her from any harm. One night, I woke up in my bed and I heard footsteps pacing back and forth in my sister's room. I assumed that she was just being her usual dramatic self, so I went back to sleep. But the next morning, I heard the same sound again. This time, though, it was coming from under the floorboards. I told my mom and dad about it, but they dismissed it as just some old house noises. I couldn't stop thinking about the sound, though, and I even started hearing it during the day. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went into my sister's room and pried up the floorboard to reveal the crawl space underneath. I shone a flashlight in and saw nothing but darkness. I called out into the crawl space, but I received no response. I replaced the floorboard and I tried to forget about it. But the footsteps continued to bother me, and I soon became convinced that there was a ghost living in our house. I researched ghosts and haunted houses online, and I learned that I could use salt to keep spirits away. I bought several bags of rock salt and I started throwing it around the perimeter of my sister's room. I also put a large bowl of salt in the center of the room. For a while, the footsteps in the crawl space stopped. I thought I'd been successful, but one night I woke up and heard them again. The footsteps were louder than ever, and I could feel the vibrations in my bed. I got out of bed and walked into my sister's room. To my horror, the bowl of salt had been overturned and the floor was littered with shards of glass. I screamed, but no one came to my aid. I ran out of the house, and I didn't stop running until I reached my friend's house. When I told my friend what had happened, she suggested that I go to a psychic to learn more. I did, and the psychic told me that there was a male spirit haunting my sister's room. He said that the spirit was very angry, and that he was trying to communicate with us. The psychic advised me to try to communicate back, but I didn't know what to say. The footsteps in the crawl space continued for weeks, and I grew increasingly terrified. Then one day, my sister moved out. The footsteps stopped soon after she did. Thank you for watching. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these stories did you find most disturbing? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Till next time, remember to stay safe.